Good morning, and welcome to Morning Movie News, where sometimes it gets to be the end of the workday and I start to panic because I don't have enough stories or a lead story for the next day's episode of Morning Movie News. But late last night, the movie gods smiled upon me with not just one, not just two, but three major stories. Well, I don't know if they're major from like a fan perspective, but from like the business of Hollywood perspective, they're all kind of a big deal. So I'm very excited to discuss them with you today. And as you can see, my computer is fixed and is back. So the day's off to a great start. All right, so the first story of the day comes from where else? The Disney Company, which is moving full steam ahead with tentpole after tentpole after tentpole. They are firmly in the tentpole business. They've admitted it. And after The Queen of Katwe and The Finest Hours, two very good movies, by the way, totally bombed at the box office, I don't see them getting out of the tentpole business anytime soon. Especially because I think movies like The Jungle Book will be a strong awards contender anyway, and they don't need the smaller movies to compete in that arena. So this one is they're going to do a remake of Oliver Twist, but the musical version, which is actually quite good. If you've never rented the musical Oliver, I would do so. It's very good. It's one of the great musicals of all time, and they're going to update it like they did Annie, which is, I think, the big dark cloud that hangs over this remake. But let me tell you who's involved, because I think this could go either way. So Ice Cube is going to not only produce, but star as Fagin. And then Thomas Kail is going to direct. He is the director of Hamilton, but also, I think, just as impressive, he directed Grease Live on Fox. And if you didn't see Grease Live, oh, you missed out. This was something truly extraordinary. And in a way, I'm a little sad that we'll never have a live event like that again on Fox because Kail got upgraded. But he's working towards getting all the awards because he's got a Tony for directing Hamilton and he's got an Emmy for directing Grease Live, and that means it's time to set his sights on Oscar. So this is shot one. So in Grease Live, one of the great things about Grease Live is it was incredibly inventive with the live format, but also it was exactly the Grease that you wanted to get, right? I mean, I think that Thomas Kail really knew how to play into the expectations of the audience for that property. And I think that one of the great things about Hamilton, of course, Lin-Manuel Miranda, hugely responsible for that success, but I think that Thomas Kail also obviously contributed. And the great thing about Hamilton is that it's not only authentic to who's in America today, updating the idea of who's an immigrant, right? From Alexander Hamilton to the immigrants of today. But I think it feels very authentic to being a story about American history, from the set design to the costumes to the feel. And so I think that's very important. Like, Hamilton was fresh and new, but also at the same time what you expect out of a story about American history. So that gives me a little bit of a better feeling for Oliver. I think Thomas Kail knows what people want Oliver to be, even when it's updated. The biggest problem with Annie, which had Oscar winner Jamie Foxx starring in it, was that it just felt a lot like a TV movie, like a Disney Channel movie. And that's what's really scary about doing Oliver, especially with a talent like Ice Cube. Now, Ice Cube is a very talented singer-songwriter, obviously, and he produced Straight Outta Compton last year, a fantastic movie. But I would have cast his son as Fagin. I think his son might be a little bit of a stronger actor because I enjoy Ice Cube in movies as much as the next person who pays to see them. I've enjoyed the ride-along films. I think his upcoming fist fight movie with Charlie Day seems amusing. But let's be honest, he's not really a fantastic actor. And when you think of something like Oliver, a property like Oliver, I'm not like, oh, I can't wait to see Ice Cube as Fagin. I'm not even particularly excited about, his doing the music, right? I mean, I think that Straight Outta Compton highlighted the artist that he used to be with the songwriting and the messages that what he had to say, and maybe he'll be able to deliver something like that here, which they're saying is going to be a mishmash of genres, including hip-hop. But it just makes me very nervous that Ice Cube is the only part of this package as an on-screen talent, not as a producer, but as an on-screen talent, that makes me worry that this could turn out to be the new Annie. And I think that Oliver could and should be so much more. Now, of course, it's from Disney, but, not everything, well, for the most part, Disney does make everything a hit. But this is a little bit scary. I would have even preferred Kanye West if they were going to do stunt casting, because who else but Kanye West would start a gang of street kids, right? And today, in modern times to be pickpockets. That totally sounds like something Kanye would do. Ice Cube, not so much. You mean there's no shortage of adult criminals. But I guess, and also I think today people would totally suspect kids, right? I mean, like back with Oliver, they're like, kid pickpockets? I mean, I don't know. I guess there's a long history of kids committing crime. But still, I don't know. We'll see. I think this could either be a new Hamilton or it could be a new Annie. But, very exciting. And Fox, which had Thomas Kail for Grease Live, I can't believe they lost him to Disney. Ooh, Disney, just mining the Hamilton talent left and right. In fact, if you're in Hamilton and you don't get the call from Disney, you should be insulted. All right, so that's the first story of the day. And the second story of the day, so Thomas Kail's been rewarded for his work on Hamilton and Grease Live, and now Shawn Levy has been rewarded for his involvement with Stranger Things as a producer and as a director of several of the episodes with, get this, Sony's Uncharted movie. What? I mean, yes, I understand that the Duffer Brothers are busy. They have to make season 2 of Stranger Things, which everybody wants right now. But I think that to say that Shawn Levy was like what made Stranger Things work, I mean, I think that what really worked for him is that he just didn't get the Duffer Brothers' way, which is valuable, make no doubt about it. But maybe Shawn Levy should focus more on being a producer these days. He also has a cameo in Stranger Things as the mortician when they go to look at Will's body. Just for a fun fact there, if you've watched or are going to watch Stranger Things. And if you haven't watched Stranger Things, what's taking so long? But anyway, I mean, Shawn Levy has directed movies like Night at the Museum, Real Steel, Date Night, The Pink Panther with Steve Martin. And look, those are all solid movies, right? I mean, I liked some of the Night at the Museum films. Real Steel is a good movie. Date Night's a good movie. Pink Panther, it was amusing. I like the hamburger joke. But on the other hand, is that really Uncharted quality level, right? Is Uncharted just going to turn into like a glossy, cliche studio picture? I mean, Shawn Levy can obviously deliver, but I don't think he can deliver what video game fans are expecting for the Uncharted movie. I think casting's going to be key here. Although, with all due respect to Shawn Levy, maybe he picked up some cool new tricks working on Stranger Things. Maybe it opened his eyes to what he could accomplish. So I'm hopeful that that's what's going to happen, but I don't know. I think that his resume makes me very nervous. That's a lot of projects here where you're like, I'm excited this is happening, but I don't know if I feel so good about who it's happening with. So we'll see who gets casted as the lead in Uncharted, and fans have waited so long for this movie. I wonder how they're going to feel about Shawn Levy directing, right? Like, he's the kind of guy, like, the upcoming Jumanji movie or like Goosebumps. Like, I feel like that's the Uncharted you're going to get. Then the third story of the day is on Monday we talked about Time Warner being acquired by AT&T. And one of the things that I talked about was the rumor that Apple almost bought Time Warner and that maybe Apple would buy Disney, right? So I think, obviously, I reported it because everyone's talking about it. This is a big rumor. And yesterday, Tim Cook at Apple said, we might indeed buy something, which was like mind-blowing. It was like, oh my God, it might actually happen. So what he said specifically was, Apple is indeed open to acquisitions of any size, of any company. But he did mention content and said that Apple is definitely moving into that area. And they're probably going to start with original content. But, that's a really big deal. Imagining iTunes with, its own content to push is a very odd thing. And I'm not sure how it's going to work. I think that Apple having favoritism is a little bit concerning. And also, if the show isn't good, will it tarnish the Apple brand? I mean, how much tarnish can the Apple brand take? People are already kind of upset with their iPhones. But that is one of the things that's making them probably want to acquire some content. Because, and also I want to say on a side note, acquisition is a safer bet for them. If they do original content and it doesn't work out, they take the blame. If they acquire someone else's content, then they're like, we bought a lot of stuff and some of it's good and some of it isn't. But I really think that Disney is a good fit with them. I wouldn't say they should acquire Disney, maybe a merger. But again, as I said on Monday, because of Walt Disney's legacy, the idea of somebody else owning the Disney company and not being autonomous, I think is very scary. But I think that Disney, they kind of already do favor Disney content on iTunes, so I think it would be a very good fit. But the reason, because I said that, I talked about the iPhone, people being unhappy with the iPhone, that's why Apple's probably going to make an acquisition, because for the first time in 15 years, their sales dipped. That is horrifying. And the reason they dipped is because iPhone sales are down, and iPhone has, since its inception, 15 years ago, supported the company. Like, they live on iPhone sales. And now that they're going down, now they need to get another revenue stream to make sure the company stays flush with cash. And so content is a great way to do that. I think that they should maybe innovate, but I think that Apple's like, we can't innovate. Because, it's really fascinating to see what happens to companies after they lose their creative founders. Walt Disney, interestingly enough, with the Disney company, they had a very rough period after his death in the late 60s and 70s. And then also Apple after Steve Jobs' death. Now, Disney ultimately found someone who was able to run the company and get good talent. And, you had the Disney animation renaissance. Michael Eisner, Jeffrey Katzenberg really revitalized that company. And today, Bob Iger has made Disney the strongest it's ever been. And with very good people like Kevin Feige and Kathleen Kennedy. Although I think the jury's still out on Kathleen Kennedy and what she's doing with Lucasfilm. But anyway, Tim Cook, I don't know if Tim Cook's really the best guy to run the company. I know Steve Jobs chose him. He seems like a nice enough guy, but he's not doing a good job stewarding the company. And I really think that they need to have competitions. Apple should sponsor design competitions to find new innovators to come up with new product for them, because clearly the people who are currently working there just can't do it. And that's the real bread and butter at Apple, innovation and knowing what the customer wants more than, being more consumer oriented than the next guy, the next company. And I guess right now their phone's not exploding, but that's not going to be a plus forever. They're already losing market share. So anyway, those are the three stories of the day. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on each of them. Now let's go to the viewer question from Sam Meissen, who asked a question based on a story from yesterday. So Sam Meissen tweeted me and he said, "Hi Grace Randolph, question. Nate Parker's scandal messed up his movie's chances in award season. So how does the Sausage Party overworking its animator scandal not affect its chances?" Now, yesterday I reported on the fact that Sony is doing a major push for Sausage Party during award season for Best Animated Feature and Best Original Song. And one of the things is that they're not inviting the director to come to the screenings who was responsible for overworking the animators. So let me explain. And Nate Parker, if he'd kind of fallen on his sword, so to speak, he probably maybe still, I don't know. Not paying animators and working them overtime is a very different charge than rape and harassment, right? Gang rape to some degree. So the charges are on a totally different level. But with Sony and Seth Rogen, they're able to say, we didn't know about it. This was, we weren't alerted to it. We're, of course, going to make good. And I think that it would help them. And don't be surprised if you see a story like this right around when it's time to vote for award season of Sony saying, we paid everybody the money they were owed, right? I mean, Canada is currently doing an investigation into the situation. And I think that, Sony could also say we're waiting to see the results of the investigation. But if they really want, if they don't want other animation companies to be whispering in voters' ears that Sony cheated animators, it would be, I think, worth the money in the long run to just pay those guys what they're owed for their work. So again, don't be surprised if that's done at a time when they get the most bang for their buck out of the headline. But again, it's very removed from the actual movie, and it happened in Canada, and it happened to someone they outsourced the animation to, and now that they know about it, they're fixing it, right? So that's the difference. And I'm sure Seth Rogen will say, I was aghast to find this out, it's horrible, and really be apologetic about it, whereas Nate Parker was not apologetic, and that really was the heart of his problem, that he just refused to be apologetic at all. He literally refused to apologize. And sometimes you just have to take a short-term hit for a long-term gain. And also, this is something that happened to Nate Parker a very long time ago, like 17 years ago. And I think that this is a good example of, trying to bury something and it just coming back and getting you at the worst time possible. I mean, as we discussed, Oprah Winfrey offered to help him with this and shepherd him through with a special, an hour-long special, right when the story first broke, back in July or August, and he said no. It might have even been September, but still, it was very early on, and they could have squashed the scandal right then and there with Oprah's support, and he didn't want to do it. And so I think that it was a really bad strategy on his behalf. And so that's the difference. But I can see where you're coming from, Sam. Scandals are tough, and that's why they handle PR firms to help them navigate it, to help companies and individuals navigate it, because, and PR companies really know what they're doing. So I hope that Sony and Seth Rogen listen, and Nate Parker should have. All right, so that's today's morning movie news. Thank you for your question, Sam. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories, Sam's viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.